time to seek help. Listen, no one is perfect. We all have our own unique struggles in life, but it's what we do with our struggles that matters most. Accepting who you are, where you are right now, that is truly courageous. So be brave. Take the first step for you and for those you love. Spend a few minutes and complete the screening. Help is just a click away.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarina Fazan, a journalist, producer, and the host of On the Record. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast episode. I'm here with Wendy R. Levine, an author, as well as Elizabeth West, a personal life coach and the owner of Jazzercise, and we are ready to go on the record. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me. And this is really a milestone moment for me. So this is my studio out of CP Communications and Red House Streaming. And I have been doing shows here, but this is the first official announcement launch that we're carrying it every week on Wednesdays at noon.
Yay!
Yay! Hey, I need a little bit more enthusiasm. Yay! Okay, there we go. Yay! Very, very important topic, though, and I'm so thankful for the two of you to be here. This is National Eating Disorders Awareness Week, and Wendy R. Levine wrote this book, Butterflies Are Free, What About Me? Thank you for your bravery for being here. But you have me on one side, you have Elizabeth West, who is so amazing, and on a personal note, helps me all the time, right on your other side. Mm-hmm. Wendy, can you please share your story? You've been battling anorexia for 47 years.
It's later now because I'm older, but it's like 50 years. I first became anorexic, even though I didn't look it, when I was 16 and a half. My family moved from Massachusetts to New York State. And I was a little overweight, and I said, I'm going to remake myself, let my short hair grow long, and just remake myself. But I went a little too far, and at that point in time, in the 70s, no one really knew about eating disorders. And it like slipped through the cracks, and my family didn't know what was happening. Even as they ate, we ate at the dinner table, and I refused to eat. They would eat, and I would not eat. And there's many reasons why people develop eating disorders. Some of it is social, some of it is genetic. They say that 50 to 80% of risk factors for eating disorders are genetic and heritable. And in my family, I have double whammies. There's eating disorders on my maternal and paternal side of the family. And I had some people make comments. I mean, you think that sticks and stones can break my bones, but names can never hurt me? Not so. I can remember distinctly, this is when I was probably 13, and at an awkward age when your body is really awkward, a doctor, a family doctor, well-meaning, gave me a book called A Girl and Her Figure.
Oh,
it was a yellow book, and I still remember that. That was horrible. And I was friends with his daughter, and it was like, that was horrible enough. And then we had a family barbecue, and my brothers and I and my cousin were toasting marshmallows, and there was one ill-mannered guest. All of this is in my book, by the way, who I heard say to my parents, how is it that you have two sons who are thin and your daughter's fat?
No.
I swear to God.
You are kidding.
I swear.
Oh
so
my gosh.
I dropped my stick into the fire, into the grill, and I ran into the house, into the living room, and I cried. And then my brother, my best friend Barry, came into the living room and said, don't listen to him. He's an old jerk and everything. And then the old jerk came in, and he said, I didn't mean, you can't take it back.
No,
it's like opening up a pillow and the feathers go out. You can't bring the feathers back.
No, you can't. And when you talked about the phrase "sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me," I agree. I think name calling hurts more. You carry it with you. At least when you break a bone, you know when it's going to heal.
Exactly.
This is Lowell Beckner, by the way. He is the general manager of the studio. He's not on camera. Like we're going behind the scenes, also trying to fix a necklace for the microphone issue. But Elizabeth, let me ask you, as you're hearing Wendy's story, what are you thinking right now? And Wendy, we have so many questions for you, but just hearing her story, what are you thinking?
So those times that you just pointed out in your childhood are so huge to you, but other people probably just lost it over and said, "Oh, don't be ridiculous, it's no big deal," and so that stood out to me. And then the fact that it was on both sides of your family. When did you find that out?
I always suspected one first cousin of truly being eating disorder, just looking at her. And then it was confirmed, and then I have her sisters. I don't have contact with that cousin, but the sister who is now considered elderly still worries about her weight. I'm not saying she's got an eating disorder now, but I know she worries because we talk about it. And on my mother's side, I do know my second cousin was anorexic and bulimic.
And there's different, as we know, many different eating disorders and, bulimia, anorexia. Talk to us a little bit, and we'll go back to your life, but specifically for those people who may not know what anorexia is, explain that to us, Wendy.
Anorexia does not mean that you're not hungry. You walk around hungry. I can tell you that anorexia, even if you are really thin, very often you have body dysmorphia and you think that you're fat. And you don't eat enough calories to maintain a healthy weight. And I can tell you, in my book, I have a scenario in there where I thought I was eating a lot. When I was renting a room from an elderly woman, I was eating deserter gelatin. That was the name of it in those days. It wasn't Diet Jello. And shredded cabbage and carrots. And I worked full-time in downtown Boston at Blue Cross Blue Shield at that time. And I ate an apple every night in the bathtub when the water was running, so no one would see me or hear me eating.
Isn't that
I felt so
something?
guilty eating.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really sad. People feel guilty eating.
How much weight did you lose? What were you down to? And how tall are you? You're about 5.
I'm about 5'2".
Yeah, about 5'2", because you're the size of my mom. I would say you're so precious. You're so. So you were about 5'2". So how much did you weigh, though? Would you say?
I went down to 92 pounds.
92 pounds, Elizabeth.
And how often did you weigh yourself?
Oh, every day. Every day, multiple times a day.
So so Elizabeth is not only a life coach; she also owns Jazzercise in South Tampa, and I love taking your classes. I've taken my daughter. We've done a story on it. So hearing that element as well, Elizabeth, weigh in.
Well, so in the fitness biz, it's a whole different focus, and so it's all about making it happen and working out and being your healthiest self, eating for your performance. So that's the life that you live when you're a fitness person. But I was telling you a little bit earlier, knowing full well that when we're on stage teaching class, we got to be careful about what we talk about because we could trigger somebody. So if I'm gonna look fit on stage and then talk about what I ate last night, that could be such a horrible experience for somebody who's going through the things that you've gone through. So it's a hard one. It's hard to navigate. I'm sure your parents had a hard time.
They had no idea what was wrong.
When did you, speaking of triggers, you bring up such an important point, Elizabeth. So I want to talk about that, but when did this become apparent? You said at 16 years old is when you really started feeling it. When did your parents find out? What happened? Did you have to go into treatment?
I was in my late 20s, and I moved to Boston after I graduated college in New York State. I went to Boston, and for depression, I was seeing a psychologist. And after a year of seeing this woman, telling her how I weigh my food and I feel fat and this and that, she said to me, "It's not that I don't want to see you." She didn't want me to feel rejected. "But I think you have anorexia nervosa, and I need to refer you to Mass General Hospital's eating disorder clinic." I mean, I was already entrenched in the disease, so it's like it's part of me. It's like,
Did you feel relieved or did you feel scorned?
Great question. Great question.
I felt terrified.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? And I started therapy with a doctor by the name of Christopher Gordon.
And thank goodness for that therapist, though, who stepped in and said, you know what?
Yeah.
This is your diagnosis, and I am going to refer you to Mass General. So I'm sorry. So then you started treatment with the doctor.
With a doctor. And it was like a love-hate affair because like he really helped me, but at times I hated him because he just, he's trying to help me get better. And then, like, when I started really getting lower and lower, they gave me, a choice. If you get below 90 pounds, you're going in the hospital. No choice. So I just was really careful because I didn't want to be put in a hospital. And I also had a nutritionist named Miriam Seidel, who was about my age, and we connected, but you can't be friends with your provider because that doesn't bode well. But as it happened, she had to leave after just 6 months of treatment because she was moving out of state with her boyfriend, and she was getting married. And I sent a card through the nutritionist, and to this day, Mim and I are still friends. It's like we, bucked the system. And what's really sad, and what I remember most about my time in with the nutritionist is I'd have to get weighed at the end of the day. This is a work day. And I would wear the same dress, a thin cotton dress, every appointment because I didn't want it to weigh too much.
Isn't that something? I mean,
it's crazy.
It's like the ounces even matter. And I'm guilty of taking off my shoes when I get weighed. I mean, I really am. I think so many of us women do that,
The ounces matter. And it came so significant that she broke the rules, and in the winter she didn't want me to wear like the thin dress underneath the winter coat. She let me wear pants. She kept my dress in her drawer in a bag and let me change in the ladies' room because she was a good woman. She is a good woman.
Yeah.
And I could see you're getting emotional about it.
It's when I'll be honest, I wrote the book and I know what it's all about. And earlier this week I was reading it, and it brought me to tears because it's so sad. What I have been through is no joke. I don't want other people to go through this, and that's why I wrote the book and why I'm talking about it, because if I can help just one person avoid the pain that I have lived with, I feel really good.
Or even somebody who's gone through it.
Or someone who's gone through it.
Connect. Yeah.
People would say when I worked in a traditional newsroom, I would do all these interviews and such sad interviews, like the toughest stories that you can imagine. And even my colleagues would say to me, but why do you always do those stories? And I would say that sometimes by sharing the most painful stories, it could help just one person. And if you can help one person in your life, and I don't mean to get emotional, I feel then, as painful as it is, it's worth it to share your story. But thank you for sharing your story. And but I want to go back. So you're in your late 20s. You're going to Mass General now at the hospital. Take us now from there. How many years did it take to get to a point that you're healthy? And I know it's always there, right, Elizabeth? Anytime there's an illness like this, it's a constant in your life.
It's a constant. It's something that I think people will say that they are recovered, and I respect that, but I think it's more of something that you manage. I don't know. For me, I'm so entrenched with it. I don't think I'm ever going to just say, oh, I'm going to have a piece of birthday cake, I'm going to have pizza, or I'm going to have this, or I still write down what I eat every day. I mean, it's crazy. It's like really crazy. But I was hospitalized in Massachusetts. I call that primitive treatment because they just had one menu. They had the A diet for the anorexics and the B diet for the bulimics. And the anorexics would try to give their food to the bulimics. And the bulimics would want to have it. But we had monitors, and it didn't really fly. But that's where I have some of my writings from like 30, 40 years ago are in the book, and it blows my mind what I wrote then and what I read now. And but then I guess 10 years ago, when I lost a job, I got divorced, and my dad died, I really backslided.
And how long ago was this? I'm sorry?
10 years ago. And I needed to go into treatment. And I found a program that was a outpatient program, and it was a new program that was starting. And I went to the very first night of the program. And after 5 times, the psychiatrist who was leading the program said, I really think you could benefit by inpatient. And I was like, oh no, not again.
Right.
So I went to Fairwinds Treatment Center in Clearwater, and I credit them with, for the first time in my life, I ate normally. And I gained very little weight eating normally, and they showed me that I could eat and not blow up, and I wasn't exercising compulsively either because they wouldn't let you. You earned your points, and I got to walk for 20 minutes in the parking lot with other people. That was if you ate your meals, and if you didn't eat your meals, you had a supplement with the same amount of calorie for calorie with Boost. Whereas in the primitive place, it didn't matter. If you just left one bite on your plate, you had to drink a whole Carnation instant breakfast drink. And that's like horrible. That is like inhumane.
It's interesting to see the 2 programs, right? And I have to say, just the pressures of that, being on television, TV adds 10 to 15 pounds, right? So as a television anchor, a news personality, whatever you want to call it, for years, people would say, like, what's in your bag? It was nuts, cheese, maybe an egg, and plus I didn't have time to stop to eat. But I will say, when I started eating normally, it is surprising that I truly was the thinnest that I was, or when I say thinnest, and I'm sorry, I don't, the most healthy. I felt the most healthy. I felt good about myself, and I wasn't starving all the time. And I know with eating disorders, and I think all of us at some point, especially as females, go through not, to the extreme, and bless your heart, Wendy, but we go through something like this. What did you say?
I do. And the other thing that stood out to me was the words that you used to describe yourself. Is that do you think that you're hard on yourself with the words you use?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Which words particularly when you said?
When you said that you were tracking your food and that's crazy, my first thought was, I know a lot of people who track their food all the time. So it's not the actual tracking of the food, it's what you're trying to get out of it or what it's proving to you. And so I didn't think that was crazy. So, but I thought that was an interesting word for you because you're not crazy.
No, I'm not.
And we shouldn't use words to be mean to her. So often I'll say to people, would you stop being mean to my friend? Meaning, would you stop being mean to you?
No, but that's a really good point that Elizabeth brought up, that there are a lot of people that track their food because they're, they could be in fitness or they want to, whatever it is, but it is the word that you use to describe yourself. How did that make you feel when she said that?
It just made me feel like I better watch what I say. It's like, because it is a psychiatric illness, and what's really sad, the statistics show that every hour, 1 person dies from an eating disorder, and that I find mind-boggling. I Googled it in several places because I couldn't believe it. And whether it be bulimia, anorexia, compulsive overeating, binge eating, I had a very dear friend who was a compulsive eater back in Boston, and she lost 100 pounds, I don't know how many times. It's a whole person.
Yes.
And I told her I don't want to get a phone call one day that she's gone. And she said, oh, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. It happened. And how do you deal with something like that?
In this day and age, our immune system, obviously we know that now, this last year, we know all about our immune system. How compromised must it be when you're robbing your body from nutrients?
And speaking of that, I know it's hard to tell in the depth perception in the studio, but we are all sitting apart, just so that people know. that I did some research too before we went on the show, and that number is so disturbing, about one person within the hour. I also learned that the first anorexia case was diagnosed, they believe, in the 1800s.
Right.
You know, so they believe it was diagnosed in the 1800s. But to see so many women and men too, it's not just limited to women, men struggle from it as well. But
Right.
Wendy, I wanted to go back because I do want to talk about that as well. So Fair Winds, you said, in Clearwater, and you appreciated their program because you felt that they helped you to eat normally. So that was about 10 years ago.
That
you
was
said.
10, and I will be honest, I relapsed and I was there a total of 3 times.
Wow.
And that's not unusual. When I went back, I was like old home day. I saw people that I was in with the first time I was there. Some people were there for months and months. Their insurance let them be there for that long because they were so critical. I was there for a month at a time, and it's like you're in a bubble there. You're not in the real world. I mean, I had to go home because I'm single. I had to go home, go grocery shopping, to navigate the store, then go home and cook the food and eat the food. Are you crazy? Are you
Caught the word crazy.
Are you ridiculous? How do you think a person can go from, but they did have an intensive outpatient treatment thing that you went there for a few weeks at night and you had your evening meal and you were up to your own for 3 meals and 3 snacks a day, which it's not really realistic to think that you're going to be in treatment and go home and do 3 meals and 3 snacks. It's a lot of.
No kidding.
Right, and especially when you're struggling with this issue in the first place with this diagnosis. So, but you did feel, and we appreciate your honesty and your bravery. So you did relapse several times, but do you feel now? And how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Next week I'll be 66.
Don't be asking me that
Yeah,
question.
okay, I won't. And don't be asking me that question either. But thank you for sharing. I shouldn't have put you on the spot. I shouldn't have put you on the spot.
My birth date is in my book.
It's in the book. Okay, but you feel now, even though you're very, very cognizant of it, I know it always stays with you, but you do feel you have a better grasp of it?
I have a
and feel
better
healthy?
grasp of it. I don't like, I'm going to be honest, I don't like what I look like. I have thyroid issues, I have gut issues. I mean, and that's what I'm going to say too, that people think, you know, when they're younger, you're invincible. Nothing's going to happen to me. Well, it's not true. I have thyroid issues now, I have gut issues, now I have osteoporosis. It might have happened because of my age, but I would urge anyone who is in the middle of an eating disorder, who is not in treatment, to get help, because it's going to come back and bite you later in so many ways.
Well, we think you look beautiful.
Aw.
And seriously, 66 next week? Oh my gosh. You're beautiful inside and outside.
Thank you.
I know you're not an expert on insurance, but do most insurance, is it covered
It's
typically?
a fight. It's a fight.
Okay.
When I was in treatment at Fairwinds, people were told like the day before they were going to have to leave, they'd have to go home because insurance said they're not going to pay anymore. When I had some difficulty this past summer, or it's so hard with COVID, if it was this summer or the summer before.
I know, we can't, none of us can keep the days
It was the summer
straight.
before. It was after my mom passed away in May.
sorry.
Thank you. I had trouble again. And I'm on Medicare, and Medicare would not cover it. I called, the only place was a place in Louisiana, and we looked at the place in Louisiana, and my brother said, I'm not letting you go there. And I didn't want to go there, like after looking it up and reading about it. So I kind of, had my team. I do have my team who helps me, and I have my friends. I have a wonderful circle of friends that I am so grateful for, because without friends,
I know.
you can't make it in
Friends
life.
are family.
Friends are family.
I will say, as a journalist, and I say to everybody out there as well, do not give up. It is a fight we're taking with insurance. You may have to make a lot of phone calls. You may have to get your friends and family involved, but don't give up, because if it's your health, it needs to get covered, and it will. It just might take a lot of phone calls and a lot of hours.
On that, I give you sample letters to insurance companies.
This is fantastic. So sample letters.
To insurance companies that I was, NEDA, National Eating Disorder Association.
We tag them too. We tag them on our social media posts. So I'm hoping that they share, this podcast. And
they let me use their information because it's so hard to get it covered, and it's really life-threatening.
It is. So Elizabeth, I want to shift gears a bit. So researching any type of eating disorder too, they say that a lot of times, this can happen with people, and I know it can happen to anybody, but people who are, on camera, dance, so on and so forth. But I feel, as the mother of a 13-year-old girl, and so for moms out there, I think there is so much even added pressure with every single cover of a magazine. I mean, there was always that pressure, but now with Instagram and Snapchat and all this, can you talk about that? Like, can you give us advice on how to help?
Sure. I think it's once again the words we use, where we focus. I was talking earlier with Wendy. One of the things that I'm always fascinated about is how determined an anorexic is or a bulimic, because you will get your way no matter what, and being able to turn that behavior into a different direction is huge. But the mother thing with the teenage, is just really not giving up on the talk, even though they're seemingly turning you off. They're listening, you know, and just focusing on what's important. And when we're talking about our bodies, what's important is strength, is health, is our immunity, and those are all things that are not the, what we see. And so when you focus on that, you were talking about going to the grocery store and how that is hard. We go to the grocery store and I try and buy fruits and vegetables because I hate eating fruits and vegetables. It's a whole different experience. But putting the focus on what's important in those areas, I think, is key.
Well, let me ask you this: like, as a mom, sometimes, and I have to catch myself with Sammy all the time.
Yeah.
It slips, like, oh gosh, I don't want to eat, that ice cream because, I gained a couple pounds this past week. Or, oh gosh, I can't order the French fries. Do we, as moms and being very cognizant of self-image, do we need to bite our tongue about that kind of stuff? Yes. So do you have some tips and tools on how to do that? Like, I try to keep it on the forefront, but do you have any tips and tools for us?
I think it's a decision, is it worth it, is a term that we use often, is it worth it? Is that ice cream at the end of the day worth it? Or did you eat something maybe at lunch and now is it the best choice, and putting it in that person's control, because, we're women, heck, if you tell us what we can't do, we're gonna do it. So putting it in the choice, I think, is really important.
And do you feel too, I feel as women especially, and again, we know this affects men as well, but for our young girls out there, that we need to set the example, right? We need to set the example for being healthy individuals, healthy leaders, healthy eaters.
Right.
Right? So how do we do that when we are not feeling as strong? So how do we do it?
And especially right now, because, you're hearing about the COVID 10, 15, 20, whatever number people are putting on it, because people have been home. We've been scared, we've been binge eating, all the things that we do with food. And so I think as we recover out of this pandemic and we get more active and healthy, is being careful on what we say and not talking so much about, look at all this weight I gained, or, let's put the focus on, look at what I'm doing. I'm exercising, I'm drinking more water. It's whatever you add that you're more successful instead of what you take away. So I'm adding fruits and vegetables. I'm going on.
No, I'm love
proving
it.
That.
No, but I love that. Like, it's what you're adding.
Yeah. So that's helpful too, because we can add. It's just the subtracting that we don't want to do. So, not using words like never, I can never have dessert anymore, or I can't, or I can only have one cheat day. That's another, those of us that have cheat days, that makes the other days intolerable, because now we're counting down to the cheat day. So, working all of those things in moderation.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And boy, Wendy, thank you so much for sharing your story again.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. You know, Wendy has been emailing and contacting me for
Since September.
yes, since September. So I really
There's
appreciate
that determination.
it. That determination. And so I would say to the audience too, if please reach out to the team. You can find me on social media and reach out if there's a topic you want to discuss. I love people. I love sharing your story, and if I can do it and we can find the time, we will absolutely share your story. As Wendy said, it may take a little bit while. What were you going to say? Something, Wendy?
Just one little plug that my book is
Oh, yes.
available
Yes.
on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
Okay, and thank you for mentioning that, because of course Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, butterflies are free. What about me? Elizabeth, if people need some life coaching or to join Jazzercise, how do they find you?
Jazzercise.com for that part, and starting your coaching for the coaching part.
Yes, believe me, she's you make me feel so much more positive about life, and look at all the positivity, because I now have my show. I'm so excited. Well, thank you ladies so much for joining us, and that brings us to the end of another episode of On the Record. Thank you so much again, Elizabeth West,
Thank
Wendy
you.
R. Levine, for joining me. And again, you can join me on all of my social media channels, and please do, and let's continue bringing positivity to the community no matter where you live. Thanks so much for watching, guys.
Thank you.